Okay, hi everyone. I hope you can hear me. Well, I'm back. It's wonderful. I'm back after quite some time, and we got a very interesting show this time from Indiana. And we'll be live there with the Raptor Center in Indiana. We have Laura Edmunds, who's a master falconer today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Christian Sasse. I run the channel called SassePhoto, and we're all about raptors, education of wildlife, and we also do astronomy, so we're quite versatile. And I would like to thank you for coming. So it's been a few weeks now. A lot of the eagles have now fledged, and many have left the nests. Of course, that's happened weeks ago already in Florida, and here on the west coast we're seeing more and more of the fledglings. Just mid-July, it's the perfect time. So anyway, I'm very happy to have you all, and we're going to have an exciting show. Thanks for joining, and ask lots of questions later. So we will be live in just about 2 minutes. So I'm just going to mute the microphone, and I'll see you in a moment. Thank you. Hello everyone, and very nice to see you. I'm just going to adjust, let me just adjust the screen a little bit. That's perfect. Well, it's wonderful to have you all back. And I've been away. I've been in Australia, and I've been in Germany, traveling quite a lot. And some of you may have seen my broadcast from Australia. We saw some wedge-tailed eagles there, and lots of kangaroos. And then I went to Germany, had a beautiful exhibition there for those of you who've been on Patreon. And I've also heard it's incredibly hot now on the East Coast. I wonder where I put my water. It must be incredibly hot. So I hope, anyway, I hope the weather is not too bad. So I don't know where I put my cup. It's what a nuisance anyway. So, gosh, what's that? Oh gosh, that's Osprey Mama's cup floating in from Florida. What a wonderful thing. Oh, there it comes. Goodness me. Thank goodness that came in from flying all the way from Florida. I want to say thank you to Osprey Mama for this beautiful cup, by the way. She gave that to me. And it's just came floating in. Isn't that wonderful? This is the magic that you have nowadays, where things just happen. So I got my water. It's great. Okay. So it's great. So anyway, let's get a little bit more serious now. So we're all there. And hi everybody. And now we're going to Indiana. I heard it's incredibly warm there. We're lucky here on the West Coast. For those of you who know degrees Celsius, we got between 25 and 30 degrees Celsius, quite warm. That's approximately 70, 75. So it's very mild actually. So we don't actually need a lot of water now. But I'm going to switch over now. So I'm going to introduce to you in a second. So let me just see if I get this technology going right. So I'm now live with Laura Edmunds. Laura Edmunds, welcome. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Welcome to the show. I hope you can hear me.
Oh, indeed.
You can hear me very good. Very nice. Laura, can you just move a little bit more into the screen? Yeah, so we can see you because you are the main. Yeah, you're the main actor here. You're the VIP here. So Laura is a master falconer at the Indiana Raptor Center. Well, Laura, can you please explain to our viewers what is a master falconer? You're also a VP and you're a clinical director, curator, band aid manager, and so on and so on. So you got a lot of titles here. So you've obviously done some amazing things in your life. Could you please give us a little bit of your background? Thank you.
Sure. Well, one of the more interesting things that I tell people about is I grew up in Louisiana, and I didn't even discover birds until I was in my early 30s. So there I was in the land of birds and sportsman's paradise, and with roseate spoonbills and ibises and things like that all over the place, and had no clue about them. And just by chance, I found out about birds, and it was all she wrote. And then a little later on, we moved up to Indiana, and at the very start of the peregrine reintroduction process, the peregrine falcon, as most folks know, along with the bald eagle, were highly affected by DDT. And so there was massive programs throughout the U.S. and Canada and some in the UK to try to bring these birds back. With the peregrine falcon, fortunately, the falconers had figured it out fairly early on because they couldn't find birds to trap and use. Usually you use them for a few years and then send them back into the wild with a greater prey base, as you might think of. And then, you let them go. And it would take more until you go to your second canyon, you go to your third canyon. And they knew something was up. And then finally, Rachel Carson came out with Silent Spring, and there was a lot of national attention about it. And so some programs got put into place along with some legislation to stop use of some pesticides. So the beginning of the peregrine reintroduction program here is when I just got to Indiana, and it just seemed like it was the thing to do. And then one interesting thing is one night one of the peregrines had gotten a little bit off course, and they brought her in for a couple of days, and I was invited up to put her back in the hack box, and I got a sniff of her, and it never occurred to me before that a bird actually has a smell. And peregrine falcons, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. Those guys have kind of a gamey smell. Kestrels smell like pine bark. Woodpeckers just have the most wonderful men's cologne type of thing. But anyway, I'd never smelled a bird before. And after that, and I got to look at this bird straight in the eyes, and I just began to weep, because it was the first time I had realized what we had done to the earth, to the extent that we had to spend $50,000 a city to be reintroducing birds that were captive raised. And so I got into the raptor part that way, never did look back. And you just need to warn people that how it got started for me was somebody gave me a cockatiel. And now there's almost 100 birds on the property. And so cockatiels, they're like a gateway bird, it's like the first one's free. But we've been very, very fortunate with the acceptance that we've had, and we're able to keep afloat with private donations. Most people don't realize that we don't get any money from the government, state or federally to do this. All these centers around the country, there's no money that comes from the government at all. We have to raise it. So wonderful things like this, which gives some good attention and some facts and stuff like that, is what we need. So I don't know if that answered or over answered your question.
Well, thank you, Laura. That was a fantastic answer. I'm really impressed. Laura, you mentioned a few things that are quite interesting that David Hancock actually educated me on. It was the book called The Silent Spring, which seems to have influenced you. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll go into more, because I've never read the book, but I know it had a major impact. Can you give us a little bit more background on that? Thank you.
well, I tell you, it was tons and tons a long time ago, and if you pair that book with Aldo Leopold's book, I think it's San County Almanac, together they just point out that we have just the one home. We don't get another crack at this. I have a lack of understanding on why and how people can blow things to bits and not correct them. They can put things out in nature that they never dream of putting into their own body. Yet it's going to wind up getting into your body soon if we don't do something about it. We're a little alarmed now because we're starting to find lead levels in birds that should not have lead levels. Not that anybody should have them, but you can't avoid having a little bit these days. But birds that shouldn't be having any lead levels at all, we're starting to find. But in terms of the books, it just brought to light what we're doing, how quickly it's happening, what's going to have to go into correcting it. And there has been some significant correction. I mean, take DDT, for example. It's difficult to get it here in the States, and it's barred, all that stuff. But in defense of it, it saved millions of lives because, I mean, the Ohio was nothing but a big swamp, and people were dying at quite a high rate of malaria and other plasmoids and stuff like that. And it got cleaned up and drained and all that sort of stuff. And so there's not the mosquitoes around that we once had. People go around complaining about mosquitoes, and it's like, man, 60 years ago, 80 years ago, they were bigger than a car. But in defense of that, yeah, it did save millions of lives. But we know now that that's a chemical that gets into us. If it's in the birds that are at the top of the food chain, the mammals that are at the top of the food chain, it's only a matter of time before it gets into us.
Well, Laura, thanks. So obviously it has a major impact on you, and you said something very significant, very profound, that should be clear to everybody. Something that you would never put into your own body, how could we put it in the environment? Because everything comes back to us. I think you you really said it very beautiful. Can you give us a little bit of background now on the raptors you have, and also your role as a master falconer? You're also a clinical director, a curator, and all the titles. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Well, the falconer thing was probably the last thing on the list. I went to nursing school down in Louisiana, and wound up working for 5 years in the emergency room and about 7 years in the operating room. And by the time I got to that age, it was starting to become apparent to me that on the list of things that were in a hospital, the patient was going from number 1 or number 2 down to number 8 or number 9. And it wasn't really what I wanted to be doing. I wanted to be with the patient. And so when this opportunity came along and I got a good whiff of that peregrine and I got interested, it snowballed, and the things seemed to go hand in hand. And so we started a Raptor Center there up in Fort Wayne. And then we wound up moving down south of Nashville, and we opened up another one. We meaning Patty Reynolds, who's our president, and she's the one that follows me around and makes sure that I don't make stuff up. But anyway, she and I opened this one, and we went around and educating ourselves. And when I was at the World Bird Sanctuary at St. Louis to learn the program that they had there at the time called Raptor Theater, I saw a Harris hawk, and for the first time, which is a beautiful bird it's from it's a neotropical bird from around southern Arizona into Mexico. And I took one look at that bird and I said, well, how do you have one of those? And they said, well, you have to be a falconer. And I said, where do you sign? And so what you do is you have to find a sponsor. And so the sponsor is a person teaches you everything to be done with falconry for about 2 years. During that time, you can only have a red-tailed hawk or a kestrel. In states where they are indigenous, you can also have a Harris hawk. So I went ahead and became a falconer. Then as a general, that's the next class up. You can have 2 or 3 more birds, and you can add other birds to the list that you can have, but you have a maximum of 3 birds in your possession. And after 5 years of that, then you can apply to become a master. And at that point in time, you're able to possess eagles and some other types of birds, and you're allowed. I'm not sure how many you're allowed to have. I think it's around 7 or 8. I'm not sure. That's not a fact. So check that. Don't take that as a real fact. But what happened was during that time when I started doing falconry, I started to see that, everybody wants to make sure the bird can fly before they go, whether it's been a broken wing or a concussion or getting over some kind of a virus. And they go and they fly them either in a flight pen or on a creance to make sure that they can do well. But people weren't stopping to see if they could land right. And through working with the hunting with birds, it occurred to me that there's this whole other set of muscles that have to be very strong. Because if you can fly, that's really good. But if you can't stop, you might as well not fly. Because what these birds have to do is, for the type of birds that chase along the ground, they have to be able to sort of predict where the rabbit or hare, which way it's going to go, and be able to turn on a dime to be able to get those birds. So suddenly you go from your power muscles to your very delicate muscles that control the fine motor movements in the wing to be able to do it. And that really increased our release rate, is to be able to get these birds stopping on a dime. And of course, the more you hang around with falconers, falconry is a lot like fishing. You go out in the morning and you hunt for a while and you get back together for lunch, and you say, like, you should see the bird that got away from me. But they get bigger, as the day goes on. So then you get together for supper and you talk about the 10-foot pheasant that you missed, just like fishing. But you can learn from falconers. And what's another nice thing about it is that falconers give to us. For example, West Nile virus hits right about the time that red-tailed hawks are being very demonstrative about teaching their young to hunt. And so if they have West Nile virus during that time, they miss it. But if we can hand the bird over to a falconer for maybe 30 days, they can, finish the bird by making sure it can catch a rabbit 3 outings in a row, and then they can go. And that also, again, increases or spreads or widens their prey base, because normally a regular-sized red-tailed hawk wouldn't go after a rabbit unless it was a very, very small female or perhaps one that's not fully grown. But it takes a large female to be able to take on a buck rabbit. So normally they wouldn't even think of doing that during the hard times of winter, but you might have flown this bird 2 or 3 years and then let it go into breeding population, and all of a sudden you got a bird that goes, oh, that's right, I used to catch rabbits, So it kind of helps all the way around. When you first catch the bird, the mortality rate is roughly 70%. About 7 out of 10 young raptors don't make it till Christmas. But you keep them a year, you get them really in good shape, you do some fine hunting with them, and when you let them go after they're a year old, then their mortality rate is down to about 30%. So it's a very nice thing that goes hand in glove in terms of people with a calling being able to help each other in very significant ways.
Well, Laura, I think you're doing a fantastic job. It's very interesting to listen to your experience. You were talking about funding before. Mm-hmm. What is the situation then? If you say you don't get any state funding, how are you funded? Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, it's a lot of blood and sweat. And we have to be doing it constantly, because the cost of food is the thing that really chokes us. Right now we're spending, oh my gosh, probably it's $1,000 every 3 weeks. We're spending on food right now, but it's usually really high during the season. Primarily our income comes from people that respond to mailings. Our big stuff comes from grants. We've been really lucky this year because we've gotten some grants that'll help us out with some significant ways to shorten the bird's time here. Better diagnosing, we'll be able to get x-rays sooner than we would have. We also have an amazing piece of software coming from oh, there you went. Okay, let me see if we can put you back where you were.
It's okay. It's okay. You're still there.
That's
Don't
even
don't
better,
worry.
yeah.
You're doing you're a very fast learner. You're fine.
The bird wants to make sure he's in the middle. We've been a lot of money, which shows Dominic Patorti, who is on my right here. That's the one with the beard. He's one of our board members, and we have pre-scheduled programs at our big state park here. Hey, puppy, you want to go on back over there? It's a little dog thing. I'm sure you can appreciate that. They're in the park every week, and we usually send another fellow who's on the board with him. And if either one of them goes by themselves, they bring in about $100. But there's some kind of synergistic thing. When they go together and both do the program, they bring in some really good money. I'm wondering if they've got some kind of sort of Lewis and Martin thing going over there that we don't know about, but they seem to have the personality to bring it in. So we have individuals, grants, who we do the mailings, and then we have a couple of one event in particular that we have in the fall called the Raptor Rendezvous. And one of the things we've been working the hardest at is bringing our facilities that take care of raptors into a nice relationship. In the old days, I'm sure you can remember, it used to be kind of sort of competitive. But we've worked very, very hard at being able to say, look, I have one baby kestrel and you have 6 baby screech owls. You think we can trade over so that, they'll know who they're with and all that. And we use our facilities amicably. So I don't think you see that. A little message came across the screen. Anyway, so we're very fortunate about that. Nobody here takes a salary. So that's something that you have to deal with. And none of our volunteers are completely volunteer. But we seem to get by. And of course, every center has a couple of big contributors that really keep us afloat, and we can count on a certain amount of time from them. So that's how it goes. It's pretty much hand to mouth, but we've been very, very fortunate. Sometimes we were down to $37 a couple of years ago, but every time we need something, it just somehow appears, like we have an angel or something. But that's how the money comes,
Well, Laura, your dedication is absolutely admirable, and I'm glad some grants actually came through, and that it looks very good for you this year. That's wonderful to hear.
It does.
I am going to switch to some of our viewers here. By the way, I can see lots of familiar names. I just wanted to say, oh yeah, there's a long list. Well, there's Osprey Mama, there's Lady Hawk, and there are many others. I just scroll up the screen quickly and just greet them. Carol is there. Let me see who else I see. Eva, Jackie, Nuthatchers, and so on. Terry, yeah, and GoPro. Yeah, the GoPro is there. That's wonderful to see you all. Thank you so much. Proud Cat Mama is also there. So go on and ask your questions. So question number 1 is from Nuthatchers QQ. All for saving our raptors. Are there land conservation efforts in progress or in process to support this effort?
I'm not really up on it from a national standpoint. There's some things that we just don't have time to catch up with. That's something that Patty might be able to answer a little better. Here in the state of Indiana, we are having some problems with that. The preservation of land seems to be going backward instead of forward, and that's sort of a really sensitive political situation right now. But it is not the first thing that's on the mind of legislatures here in Indiana, which is unfortunate. But there are a couple of very nice land trusts that, again, it's land that's purchased by people who raise money. It's not coming, the land is not coming to us from any kind of municipal situation or governmental situation. It's all people who raise money to buy land, and they try to add to that land to make a larger contiguous piece, because the larger, and of course being contiguous, is absolutely paramount. They are starting to do some things with making little corridors across major highways to make it easier for birds and little reptiles and things to get back and forth from where they need to be. And there's some educational things going on in terms of what to do when you find an animal. What direction was it going? Do I help it? You know, particularly with turtles, do I help it go that way or do I help it go that way? And you know, how do I decide on this? So there is a real effort in terms of getting people educated on it, but in terms of official program to set more land aside, there's not any big sort of a big organization to do that. It's more done on a side piece. Do you know of anything? You were able to pick up what I was saying, but there's no concentrated effort in the state. Yeah. So we're kind of fighting against that. But you know what'd you say? What'd you say? Oh, you know what? I think the barn owl wants to tell you something.
Okay, what does it say?
What'd you say? Oh, she said she wanted to tell you that she's from West Virginia and that she came from a private breeder, because these guys are endangered here in Indiana and most of the Midwest. And she just wanted to make sure that her name got mentioned on the air, because this owl is Tatooine. And I think a lot of the Star Wars people would recognize that as the home planet, right?
The desert planet.
The desert planet. So she's very proud of that and wanted me to stick that in there before it got forgotten. So are you good with that? Yeah? Okay. She's okay then.
Well, that's a beautiful introduction to this barn owl. So all the way from West Virginia. That's wonderful. Okay, I'm going to go to the next question here. That is from Chaplin, L-I-T, Chick, yes. Hi, Laura. Thanks for speaking to us this evening. I am in Arizona and see many hawks.
Oh, I'm
yes.
going to jump in right here and ask if she's seen a wild Harris hawk.
Oh, have you seen her? Okay, there you go. She throws a question right back at you, Chaplin. Have you seen a wild Harris hawk? That's going to be her question to you. And and the other way, Laura, the question for you from Chaplin is: have you had any interactions with Cooper's hawks? Thank you.
Oh, indeed, we have. Cooper's hawks are a very common bird here. They are, a lot of people get mad at them because their main food is other birds, and they catch on the fly, so they're neat birds to watch, and they'll harass birds out of bushes and stuff like that. But what people don't realize about Cooper's hawks is that they are interacting with songbirds in a very important way, because they are able, because of the way they hunt and how often they hunt, they're able to cull out the birds that would normally be taking in food that would be used by a bird that's going to be going forth. In other words, if you have a set of 8 or 10 pigeons flying around, the slowest one is probably either not feeling well that day or is perhaps an advanced bird age-wise, and that Cooper's hawk is able to come by, get that bird, take it out of the population, so there's more food for the birds that have more of a guarantee of going forward. So it's while it kind of gives you a pain in your stomach when they snag a cardinal, beautiful red cardinal off of your feeder right after you've had a snow, and you go, that guy got my cardinal. Well, yeah, but he might have been 8 or 10 years old, and his missus at the time will probably wind up with a younger bird in the spring and be able to fill in that. Of course, I guess out there she's got Pyraloxias, doesn't she? In Arizona. Sounds like something for dry skin. Anyway,
that's good. Okay.
So yeah, we do get those guys a lot. It has an inverse relationship with sharp-shinned hawks, which are just a kind of a smaller version of the Cooper's hawk, and they they really do look like you took a Cooper's hawk and put them in a shrink them, and you shrink them down and they're just smaller. Most places have more sharp-shinned hawks than they do Cooper's hawks, but we're inverse to that. For some reason in Indiana, we get quite a bit of them. They're not used much for education because they're very, very nervous little birds, and they're not happy in captivity. We only are able to use birds that we start them out young, the non-releasables, and they're amenable to the fact that they'll be in captivity and hang around with people. But Cooper's hawks are a little bit too high-strung for that sort of thing.
Thanks, Laura. Very nice. By the way, hi from Nicole. Thanks to Nicole, she has arranged this with you, and
yeah.
So she says thank you very much for being here, and it's very nice to see your face, of course. So very nice. I just want to throw in a question myself, because you were just talking about songbirds, and one thing that struck me, I just came back from Germany, and I was struck by the incredible sound that I have in the morning when I wake up at 5 a.m. of songbirds in the middle of the city. Now you have to imagine where I was in Stuttgart. That is the same latitude as I'm here on Vancouver.
Is that right?
Yeah, the density of songbirds was incredible. And I noticed this morning, every morning I go on a walk with the dogs, and I noticed, wow, why in Vancouver are there so few songbirds? Now, I just wanted to ask you the question, but it's actually two questions. Is that a coincidence that there seem to be higher density of songbirds, especially where Europe is so highly populated? I would have thought the opposite. And why am I hearing so few songbirds here? Or is that across the whole of North America? Can you maybe comment on that?
Wow, wow. I'm at a loss for that. We don't do a whole lot with songbirds. Would you call Patty in here? She may have something to do that. And also, I think I'm going to take advantage of this to change out birds. If you'd like to go and take him out, and then Dakota can take in a friend for us here.
Yeah, take your time. Take your time.
Patty, he has just been in Stuttgart, which is the same latitude with Vancouver. And while he was in Germany, he had just an awful lot of songbirds that he would hear in the morning when he would walk. But in Vancouver, it's not so, he doesn't get as much bird song. And even though it's in the same parallel, I think it would just basically depend on
it's a
local environment thing. How close were you to, like, how suburbial, if there's such a word, were you in Germany? Like, how far were you from the edge of town versus how far you are from the edge of town in Vancouver?
Well, right in the middle of town. That's what struck me, because I don't want to deviate the subject, because there's a big debate going on in Germany, because they're quite environmentally conscious, much more than what I see in the States or I see in Canada, simply because of the density of the population.
Well, so we're very, very jealous of that too.
Yes, yes, they are. What I really like is the thought. But what I heard, which is very interesting, there seems to be observations that the population of insects is going down drastically, which is affecting everything. So the bee population is going down, the insect population is going down, and it seems to be very worrisome. I don't know if there are similar statistics in North America. I know I'm deviating a lot, but actually it has a lot to do with the topic too.
Right, exactly. I would say that it's that whole saying about if you pull the string, one string on a tapestry, that you start to lose the whole thing. It just completely comes unraveled. And you're spot on mentioning the songbirds and the bees, and it man, sometimes it's hard to get to sleep at night, knowing how much, and also bats too. We're having such a terrible problem here in the Midwest with the white nose problem. But I too am deviating a little bit, talking about pollination. Because it's like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Well, you don't have pollinating with your flowers and your fruits and things that help the bees and the birds along, and then the birds and the bees are not being able to come around and pollinate those other things. And so the whole picture is very scary. And it goes right around to the earlier mention of Silent Spring, because we don't know now. We don't know when we're tugging at a particular string what part of that tapestry is going to go first. And one reason that there's songbirds in town is because about 25 or 30 years ago, there was this big push here. I'm not sure what happened in Germany, but there was this big deal about people nesting, and their effort to put bird feeders in people's yards became quite the industry. And I mean, there's Wild Birds Unlimited shops that I worked for a while, and big chunks of the big box hardware stores have bird feeding sessions in them. So it was really kind of pushed onto the people to help the birds along, and it really does, but it does kind of get confusing for the birds in terms of, well, they don't know when to move along. And it used to be, oh my gosh, the birds, they move because of the length of the day, the photo period. But, well, not only the photo periods stay in the same way, but this photo period stays the same, but the temperature is different. Now, these things are hitting these birds, and sometimes they don't know when to go or how to go, and so some of the numbers are dropping in some places. And then you have a curious thing there in Stuttgart where you have a high population of songbirds in the middle of town. So it can be confusing, and I'm acutely aware of having not answered your question at all. But hopefully someone will come along that can be able to give us something solid on that. But it's very worrisome,
Right, right. Well, thanks for answering that. I think we certainly agree, that a lot more has to be done. Could you just, before I go to the next question here from Osprey Mama, could you just show who you've got there now, and just show it close to the camera if possible, so we
I
can
would
see,
be pleased to.
so we can see the head and the beak.
This is Dakota, and Dakota's the human one.
Right.
And she's holding a little American kestrel, which I think is almost everybody's favorite. But could you move him just a little closer in there so she could see him? But this is our little male, and he's a male imprint. But he's just absolutely charming. You can see that he's got some beautiful markings. And, he's being very cooperative, isn't he? And he's sort of our starter bird here for people who are going to handle birds with us. And Dakota's doing an excellent job. But these little kestrels are in trouble. They are in serious trouble. I mean, to the tune of a 40% drop over the last 10 years. And one of the problems is that it's not in a big package. It's not something specific. Like you had the DDT with the birds that fish a lot. You had the problem with, whatever it is that peregrines, anything that peregrines eat. And so you could go, okay, we need to fix this problem. Over here, we need to fix the problem of whether or not there's enough cavities. Over here, there's not enough land, there's not enough hunting, so we're having a problem. But with these little kestrels, yes, with these little kestrels, it's a mix, and you don't know. Well, gosh, in southern Indiana, there's not enough cavities, but in northern Indiana, there's not enough of this, or there's too much mercury in the soil, south of Angola. And so, man, when you've got a mixed up stew like that, it's a lot tougher. So you can go to the peregrinefund.org. They have sort of a sub-organization called the American Kestrel Partnership, I think. They will give a lot of information, and one of their big problems, of course, is having a cavity, and you can get designs for a box on that. But they're wonderful, wonderful little birds, and a lot of times people drive past them for years thinking that they're mourning doves. But if you see more than one, it's generally a dove. If you see a single bird, take a second look. It might be one of these little kestrels. They are quite charming, and I can't get enough of them, apparently. So that's Simon, our little American kestrel.
Gosh, it's one. You know, to see your dedication is just absolutely wonderful. Really, Laura, really
Oh,
wonderful.
thank
Thank you.
you.
Really, absolutely
Well, that's kind
marvelous.
of the crow calling the parrot loud, I think, or something like that.
Re,
Some
re,
mixed metaphor.
Wonderful. Thank you for that really beautiful explanation. So I'm going to give you two questions at once. One from Osprey Mama.
Okay.
Any plans to open new locations? And then comes one from Susie Q. What makes a good falconer or a good falcon pair? What? That's an interesting one.
Uh, well, at this point in time, we're not planning on opening any more facilities. I think I might have got some angina on that, some chest pains. But we're very fortunate in Indiana that we do have a number of facilities that do all animals and include raptors in that set of birds that they do. Um, but we are very, like I mentioned before, we're very cooperative with each other in terms of trying to get each species or each individual exactly what they need at the time. And the other one was about falconry. What makes a good falconer?
Yes, exactly.
Well, I think the understanding there for the person who wants to go into it, and I'll get plenty of time to decide before the signatures on the bottom line. It is the most highly regulated sport in the world. There's a ton of rules that you have to follow, thank goodness, because you're taking one of these lives and putting them in the hands of someone that is interested in hunting. The person has to realize that, and it sounds kind of corny, but it's not a hobby, it's a lifestyle, because you can be getting ready to go to the movies, and you go inside your mew to check your bird, and there may be one little thing that's wrong, and you're going to have to stop and be delayed and tend to that before you could ever imagine continuing your evening. So you have to be very dedicated to that. You have to be dedicated to their weight, because that's usually how you're able to get the best from your bird, that you keep them at a weight where they're fit, but they're not starving. So I'd say that the thing about it is that it takes an amazing amount of focus and dedication to be able to pull it off, because you need to pass a test primarily, and then you have to build your facility. Then the facility has to be inspected by a conservation officer or a game warden, and then you can apply for your band. And your bird that you first have has to be wild caught, because it's part of the process. And that is very attended by your sponsor when you do that, because until you get past the sponsor stage, the sponsor ultimately is responsible for the bird's life, even though it is living at the apprentice's house or facility. So dedication and putting that forth, and it takes probably between $1,500 and $2,000 to get started. You can, like I said, in the 50 states, the two of the birds that you can have during your apprenticeship is one of these little kestrels or a red-tailed hawk. One of the differences there is that you can have room to house one of these guys and do real well with them in terms of having them be comfortable and happy. But the mistake of life and death on these little guys is 1 or 2 grams, where a mistake with your red-tailed hawk is going to be 2 to 3 ounces. So even though they're approved to be an apprentice bird, I don't recommend it. I think that the red tails are a little more steady and a little more plentiful. And it's not saying that we can spare them, but I think that there's more success with it. So y'all doing okay? Okay.
That's very
Well,
that's good, because there's I'm going to put another 2 questions out. One is a follow-up on the red-tailed hawk, actually. Alice Witt asks, hi Alice, we are having a problem in Illinois with West Nile virus affecting red-tailed hawks. Have you seen similar in Indiana? That's one question. So that's about the West Nile virus. And the other one from Kathleen, MQQ. Mm-hmm. I love barn owls. How old is that young lady that we saw?
She's 2 now. She's 2 years old, and she next summer we're going to get a male. to go along with her. And we haven't told her that yet. But fortunately, the barn owl is what we call a dual imprint, which means she does well with people, but she'll also be quite happy to mate also. So she's 2. So about the time she's 4 years old, we'll introduce them and see if we can play some soft music and see what becomes of that. We can get a family. But in terms of West Nile virus, that's a big giant subject. So I'm going to take that opportunity to switch out birds, if that's okay. And if you can get Dom to put him back because he's got a perch and he needs to not have that stuff on. And then Patty can come over. West Nile virus came along in 2002 on the East Coast and then got into the Midwest in 2003. And it is an awful, awful thing. It usually when we get them as patients, it's because they've gotten over the virus itself, but they're emaciated, they're disoriented. Also, they change from year to year. The virus changes a little bit in terms of what is, like some years it's very neurological. Some years there's more of a thing where they don't digest well. A lot of times they just lose most of their IQ for a couple of weeks, but it's awful. And we are beginning to see birds that have what we call a titer, where in the course of the disease occurring in these different species, they'll build up antibodies to it. And the first year it's not so high, but as it goes along, the titer, which is the thing that helps them to fight the disease, gets higher. But in red-tailed hawks and crows, in a couple of the species, the videos, like the red-tailed hawk and that sort of thing, it kind of goes up and down depending on what the disease is like that year. But in 2003, the year that it came in and hit us so badly, we had over 100 birds at one point, and we didn't even assign them charts or anything. We would start in the morning and just treat them, and by the time you got to the end of the day, you just started all over and kept going through with them. And that year we were able to save about 56 out of that number. But every morning, people all across the Midwest would be talking to each other. What came in today? What are you treating it with? What are you seeing? How long is it there? How thin was it? And so we communicated with each other daily to try to get a handle on it. Now there's some pretty set protocols for treating these things, except for that we communicate early in the season about which virus is it this year that we're seeing. We just got our first 2 patients in with it this week. We got a great horned owl and a red-tailed hawk. So it's what we call West Nile virus season, just starting up here. But one of the things we do have is a vaccine, but it's an equine vaccine. And so it works to a certain point, and it works enough to where we've been using it for, a long time, 15 years. And for the birds that are not releasable, we're able to get them started on it and give them a booster every year and prevent our longtime residents from getting it. But it's been a nasty thing. And a lot of times these viruses will come through populations, but they don't get the attention that West Nile does because humans don't get them. And so unless it's a big thing like the eagle and coot disease, where there was a problem with meningitis in I think it was Arkansas and northern Louisiana, where hundreds of eagles and coots died of a really bad meningitis. And it kind of hits a little bit every now and then. It'll drop in for summer. But you didn't hear much about that because people didn't get it at all. So I hope that's... But what it did is it progressed across the country because in 2004, it hit the Rockies. And then after that, it got into California. And so it's pretty common.
Well, thank you very much for that really detailed answer. I mean, that's it sounds very complicated because obviously, as you said, the virus is undergoing mutation, similar to what we have with influenza and so on. It's difficult. Okay, let me carry on with the next question here. Mac Lady has a very interesting observation. I have watched owl cams where the one parent will kill an owlet on purpose to feed the rest of the owlets. So that's obviously when you have food shortage, when there are too many babies and not enough food. Laura, do you find this to be true?
I personally have not seen them exercise that behavior and been able to assign a reason to it. And I'm going to include Patty on this question. Somebody's asking about, hello, it's so nice to see you, about looking at owl cams and seeing the behavior where a parent will purposefully kill an owlet for food. I'm not sure that you can associate that with getting food. I think it's more like there's a problem with the bird from the outset.
I would say, there's
a little, there you are.
Here I am. Hi.
This is Patty Riddle. She's
our president. Hi, Patricia. Nice to see you.
I would say that that's more that there's something wrong with the chicken, and it would be an alternative behavior to throwing it out of the nest. We've had birds before that, we had an eagle that was a baby that was underneath the nest. There were 2 chicks in the nest, one underneath, right under the nest, and it was being ignored by the parents while the others were being fed. And we rescued it. It was our first aquatic rescue. We had to ford a river and in the middle of the summer when there wasn't hardly any water, so they had to pole the the boat across. But and that bird was down. It was thin. It was full of parasites. And we got it healthy, and he was an absolutely charming bird, and we were going to put him on our education license, and he died 1.5 years after we first received him, and it was, he started to lose his balance. It was a neurological issue. And our vet said that basically it was the bird equivalent of ALS, and that the mom knew. And that's why that bird was at the bottom of the tree. So I would say that if an owl's killed, I mean, they may go ahead and eat it, but I don't think that would be the original reason for killing it, because
you guys agree with that?
Yeah, that it's because there's a problem. And so anyway, I can't hear anything that's going on because you have the headphones in. So
I feel like I'm very in control here.
Well, you are.
I will ask you to raise this guy just a little bit.
Okay, let's. By the way, say thanks to Pat.
Moonshine is a mal-imprinted barred owl who doesn't want to look at the camera, and she is one of our education birds, and we have quite the association. She and I. She's pretty in need of human contact, even though she's a wild bird, because she was so horribly mal-imprinted by people that took her from the nest and raised her as a pet, illegally, of course. And she was actually she was confiscated from the meth lab that they ran. And so she's had quite a little life. She lives on the back porch of the facility so that she can be near people, but also see what's going on in the woods and everything outside, so that she has dual contact. And she does call back and forth to the other barred owls out in the wild and on our property. So she's fairly well adjusted, but she still needs some human contact because without it, she gets very depressed because of her, her raising. And I don't know how much this may be old information for all your viewers, but mal-imprinting is when the animal, it happens in waterfowl and in raptors, and it's when the animal identifies from a young age with whatever's feeding it, and instead of that being an owl, it's a person. And so what happens is they're healthy. They can be perfectly healthy. And let's look at the camera, girl. There you go. They can be perfectly healthy.
Very nice.
Good flyers. They can hunt. They can take care of themselves. But when it's time to mate, they will look for a person. And they will go to the point of culling a person, trying to cull a person out of their family group. So U.S. Fish and Wildlife does not allow these kind of animals to be released into the wild for obvious reasons. I mean, it's harmful to people. It's harmful to the animals. It's harmful to people's understanding of wild animal behavior. And so they either have to be housed at an education, as an education bird at a wildlife center, or they have to be euthanized. Fortunately for us, we had room for Moonshine, and she's been here for about 8 or 9 years.
Yeah, the whole thing is just really tragic.
It is, because she's an amazing bird. And our other barred owl, Elmo, who was named that for obvious reasons. If you look at a barred owl, Elmo had the same problem. When Elmo came to us, the people that brought her claimed that she had just been on the front porch overnight, but she would walk up to us and untie her shoelaces.
Yeah.
So something wasn't right there. But there's a couple of things Laura said earlier that I wanted to comment on. She was talking about the smell of a peregrine falcon. Oh. Barred owls smell like your grandmother's linen closet on a warm summer day.
Yeah.
They smell like fresh cotton sheets that have been in a slightly musty closet. They're amazing. And the other thing is that you were talking about falconers, and that there's a quote, and I forget who it's from. Is it Roger Torrey Peterson? I can't remember who it's from. But it says that the study of falconry is spending time learning how to be polite to a bird. And I think that's true.
Yeah.
And we honor and respect all our birds here at the center as individuals. We have a little talk with the patients before they're released and tell them that they got another chance from the Great Spirit, and to go with the Great Spirit and be safe and make more babies to protect the environment, because raptors play a big role in controlling destruction of agriculture. They're a big factor in agribusiness, and because of the number of rodents that they eat and the amount of damage that rodents can do. And there's information out there if people want to look it up. But basically, a mouse can do $25 worth of damage to a crop. And a family of kestrels hunting a property during the day and a family of screech owls hunting that same property at night can save a farmer $350 a day, $35,000 in a 100-day growing season. And so these guys are really valuable, and that's, even if you were not of the belief that everything has its place in the world, you should be of the belief that keeping food affordable and available to people is a worthy reason to protect these animals.
Very nicely explained. Thank you, Pat.
Indeed.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to have 1 or 2 more questions, and then what we'll do, oops, sorry, it was my, then what we'll do is we're going to go over to give you the opportunity for you to ask 3 questions to our audience, and then they can win a picture, which I've taken for wildlife.
Oh my, okay.
So you can bombard them with nice, difficult questions, so we get a bit of a challenge. So let me wrap this up. And thank you so much for the incredible detail and dedication that you have. And that goes for everybody here. I can see the live chat going on, and they're really following everything. Also Susan North, I can see a Belladonna and many others, Glenn Hazel, Woody, and so on. And it's very nice to see that. So let me wrap it up with, let's see. Yes, Terry Green is asking, on average, how many non-releasable raptors do you care for? And this was very, very educational. Thank you. And then finally, Proud Cat Mama asked, Hi Laura, which owls are diurnal? So those are the final 2 questions. So about how many raptors do you have non-releasable? And the other one is which owls are diurnal, please? Thank you.
Okay, we have, we run around, I don't know, probably 25 or 26 residents.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a mixture of education birds or program birds that we bring out into the schools and museums and whatnot. We have several birds that are static display birds that are quite happy to be here and be on a tour, but not leave their environment. We have some foster parents that are able to take on some young that are what we call conspecific or young of the same species and raise them for us instead of having to be raised by people. And so that keeps them nice and wild. We have a couple of exotics around that we can use for commercial purpose if we can shill a little bit and get a dime from an advertisement. And then we have a few falconry birds around. So right now we have probably about 60 or 70 patients and about 26 residents.
Okay, and the other question was about which owls are diurnal.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, probably the one that comes to mind most quickly is the snowy owl. Those guys have a tendency to be diurnal because part of their year when they're way up north it's light all day long. So they're able to take advantage of being able to hunt all during the daytime. Burrowing owls tend to be a little more diurnal than most. I don't have as much knowledge on the western birds as I should. The little Canadian birds, the little hawk owls, they will come out during the day. Most birds will during the time that they're learning to hunt. Most of the owls will spend some time out, and it's a myth that they can't hunt during the daytime. All of them can do it. It's just that they're built for it in terms of their feathers and being able to fly silently and that sort of thing to be able to catch during the day. It was about birds that diurnal owls.
I think barred owls and greenhorns will hunt during the day in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Because it takes more effort to find food. But in general, I don't think we don't have any purely diurnal.
No, I don't think there's any purely diurnal ones.
Well, I'm really amazed the way you talked about falconers being, treating animals with more respect, and I can certainly see you doing that. I'm just amazed how quiet the barred owl is there, just so attentive. It's like it's listening to everything you're saying.
Well, she's going to go over it with me later.
She's going to go over it.
Right.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Okay, well, what I'm going to do now is we're going to go over to the quiz. So I'm blending in a phone number now. So you could just, it's still blinking a little bit. That's a software glitch. But I think you could you could just make it out, I think, that the phone number now. So this is for the listeners. I'm just going to try and see if I can stabilize this a bit. Get the phone number in again. No, it's still blinking. No, it doesn't matter. I hope you can see it. Anyway,
you can see it. Yeah, you can make it out.
Yeah, 425-223-4960. So that's 425-223-4960. Now I would like to kindly ask those who've won pictures before, give the others a chance, please. I know you're all very smart, but give the other ones a chance too, so they can also win something. It's very nice. So we're going to ask 3 questions. So and they can be tough questions, Laura. So I'm going to ask you to think of a question for our listeners now. I'm just going to blend out the number. It's just a bit irritating because I think they put it in the chat too. That's 425-223-4960.
Okay.
So Laura, can you please come up with the first question, and then I'm going to ask people to dial in.
Okay.
So come up with can you?
Okay. One of my favorite ones. Mm-hmm. I've got one for you.
Yeah.
And can whoever is brave enough to go along with this plan to win something, what are the 2 North American birds that can truly hover? Now, a lot of birds will do this thing that we call kiting. where to be able to stay up, you need a little bit of wind, whether it's a thermal or air coming off of a building or a front, but they need a little something to keep them up. But there's two birds that can truly hover without the help of some air underneath them.
Very nice question. So which two birds can truly hover, and I mean really hover? And we're definitely not talking about the hummingbirds, which I have outside. We're talking about something else here. So can you, so here's your big chance. There's I put the blended in the number. So we're ready for calls, and we're just going to wait. So go ahead and, yeah, take your shot at it, please. So we'll just wait until people dial in. And
while they're doing that,
yeah,
can I make a
of course, you could speak all day. It's fine.
Oh, good. One of the things we're so proud of, and we're starting to use it this weekend, is that with the help of some extremely fine people, we're in the process of finishing up Bald Eagle Hack Tower. Now, what that is that's a facility that you can put a bald eagle into for a few days so it can get its surroundings. And then when it's time, you open the door and they're free. But you set up in a place where there's a stocked pond or a lake. You stick a bunch of different perching things out there so that they could perch on it. And you put it as close to another body of water that you can that's going to have other eagles in it. And so this thing that we built has 3 suites in it. It's got, it's 20 feet tall at the area where the place where the birds go into. The floor is 20 feet high. And there's a pond right there, and the White River is within a half a mile. So they can probably see it from the top of the hack tower. But what's so important about this is that the other raptors that are in Indiana, you either have a situation, which is a very small percentage, where falconers will help them learn how to hunt and get what we call finished and go out there and support themselves. And or we put them in a space large enough with live prey so that they learn to hunt on their own. We're giving them the opportunity to learn to hunt, because you can't just teach a bird to hunt. That's something they have the opportunity to learn how to do it, the space, the proper live prey and all that. But you're challenged with bald eagles and osprey because you can't, it's very difficult to go dig an entire pond and then cover that pond and some way get this bird in shape to be able to, wait a minute, you want me to catch this, you know, it puts him on a tough spot. And so really the only way to get a bald eagle out and ready to be independent is through one of these hack towers. Now, when we had our big releases during the late 80s, I think there was at least 50 birds released over a 4-year period. The state had a wonderful hack tower down at Lake Monroe. And it was used for the 4 years. And then just by the oppression of weather and doing the stuff that wood does, and that's rot, the poor facility just sort of rotted, and now there's actually 300 trees in front of where the approach would be for the birds to come in. So there's no place right now for young bald eagles who missed that time with their parents to learn how to hunt. And so with the help of Duke Energy, that put in a remarkable amount of money and some incredible, unbelievable work hours that people have put in, we're soon going to be putting in our first 3 eagles to be hacked out of there. We have 6 to go. The first 3 will go, and then the second 3 will follow that. But it's open to use for any of the Raptor centers or people that have raptors in Indiana. So we're very, very proud of it, because when we started this, when they started releasing the eagles, there were none, 0, like none. I mean, they'd migrate through, but there were none. There were actual residents or reproducing here. And now, much sooner than they dreamed, there's over 350 pair now And so you've got 350 pair, that's 700 birds, and you've got all of the birds that are behind them because it takes 5 years to mature. So, you know, the saying, if you build it, they will come. We got the idea last fall, and Rick and Lola Nicholson had the perfect spot on their land and pitched in, and this thing's about to be into use. And we have been blessed in ways I can't even try to enumerate. But we've been very fortunate about that. And so I just wanted to, I said bragging. Have I gone from sharing to bragging? Maybe. Okay, I guess we're bragging now. But we're very, very happy about it. And hopefully we can send you some video when we get the first.
That's a wonderful story. Thank you so much. By the way, I apologize. I was getting the call through on my PC, but not on the Mac, which I'm using for broadcasting. I cannot explain why. So what I'm going to ask now is, instead of dialing the number, to please, the first one, and I'll ask our helpers here to take a look. The first one who can put in the answer into the chat will be the winner, because I don't know what's going on. For some reason I can't get the calls on through my Mac, so I apologize for that. So okay, the question again. They would love your video, by the way. I see Osprey Mama saying that. So they would love to see the. Please please give us a link or wherever we may be able to see it. So I would just like to ask you, kindly just put the answer of the question: which two raptors can truly hover in North America, right? You're talking about North American raptors.
It's not raptors, it's birds.
Oh, sorry, birds. Sorry, yeah. Which birds can truly hover? Which birds can truly hover? So we're not talking about raptors. So which birds can truly hover? Put it into the chat as an answer. And the first one who's going to have it, we will... so please, I'm going to ask Nicole and... Belladonna and Sasha, well, no, Sasha already, sorry, and Janet to look at the chat and just put the answers in here, and then I will call them out, and then I think that's a better way of doing it at the moment. So we'll improvise. Okay. Thank you. So I'm just going to wait for them to copy and paste the questions in. The answers, I'm sorry, the answers.
You want to go back to your house, kiddo? She probably does. Yeah, okay. Well, Moonshine says good night, and she thanks you very much for having her in.
Okay, here comes the first. Oh, Moonshine saying good night. That's very nice. Okay. So good night. So the first answer here from Alice says hummingbird and osprey.
You're very close.
You're very close. Not quite right, Alice. You're very close. Next one, Chaplain says the chick kestrel and hummingbird.
You got it.
Wow. Well, Chaplain, Chaplain, well done. The chick kestrel and hummingbird is spot on. I gave it away with hummingbird because I thought we're not talking about... I just noticed I gave one away, but I didn't know about the chick kestrel. Very well done. So, Chaplain, please give the give your email details on to my helpers so we can... send you some pictures. So
now let me understand. They're getting a Porsche for this?
Yeah, well, no, it's not the Porsche, it's a Lamborghini.
Not
actually.
A Porsche?
Yeah,
okay,
no,
it's
a Lamborghini. The Porsche is the second prize. Okay, so
good.
It's okay. Yeah, that's what they're getting. But you'll see, we'll spin the wheel. We're going to do that at the end, and you can say stop, so we'll see which pictures they win. So, Laura, can you please give the second question? So get ready to put it in the chat. Right. Okay, second one.
Okay, the second one is what behavior is shared by a falcon, just a regular falcon, and an average parrot?
Oh, wow. This is a brilliant question. So what behavior is shared with a parrot and an average?
Average falcon and an average parrot.
Average falcon and an average parrot. They have a very similar behavior. This is an incredibly clever question. Who's going to come up with an answer? So I'm going to open the floor now to that. I think that's not going to be an easy one. A parrot and the average falcon. So I would.
But when they hear what the answer is, they're going to go, "Oh, of course. Well, that's right.
Of course, but put the answers into the chat, please. So I'm going to open it to all of you now to answer this one. I think that's quite a difficult one. Okay, so we're going to wait for it now. These are great questions.
Yeah, one thing we've been getting in a lot of lately that we haven't gotten before, and I'm not sure why, is all of a sudden we're getting birds that are tangled up in fishing line. So I would like to remind folks that do any fishing, please be very mindful of where your fishing line is when you dispose of it. And it comes in these big wads, and these poor birds have these little tiny cuts all over them, and we have to start them on antibiotics and all kinds. They're very upset, and I would be too. So we could remind folks to be very careful about their fishing line and dispose of it properly.
You're absolutely right. I mean, we see this so much with the hooks. We see it in the eagle's nest, which we follow, a lot here on the program. We see it all the time. It's really sad because there's so much sports fishing going on, and it's all for leisure and recreation. But and that's where all the trouble comes from, because people don't realize what they're doing. Okay, so we got
right.
So Kathleen is saying breeding and eating. Is that the answer?
It's one obvious answer.
It's too obvious.
there's one that it's a little more specific than that, but in a way that's a winner. But it's not.
That's a winner, but there's something that's really specific here about the average falcon and the parrot. I was just thinking, because I was in Australia admiring all these beautiful parrots, So I was just thinking, gosh. Alice said head rotation. Is it the head rotation?
No, but they do that.
They do that, yes.
Rotate their head.
But
let me throw a hint in here.
Okay, a hint.
A behavior, when paired with a second behavior, the powers that be in terms of how birds are categorized, there's a little mumbling in there about classifying falcons as parrots or parrots as falcons. Because if you take the behavior I'm talking about, plus the added behavior in the fact that they can see the falcons can see the effect of sunlight on things that fluoresce in the presence of sunlight. For example, for them, the urine of mice and voles is visible to them from the air, and the brighter the image, the fresher the prey is. And so they see these little mice going along, and they're tipped off by the fact that they can see their urine, so they can see this. But if you take some of the parrots that are in South America, that the male and female have exactly the same coloration and look to them, if you shine a black light on those parrots, you can tell immediately a difference, because there's a fluorescent pattern in their feathers. So the parrots can tell each other apart, and we know that because they can see the fluorescence, and the falcons can see the fluorescence. So if you take that behavior and you pair it with the one we're looking for in the quiz, those are two pretty strong things taxonomically to want to change position a little bit in their position on the species profiles. So that may be one hint.
What an interesting observation. So obviously they can see into the UV, which we cannot see, the ultraviolet.
That's the word I was looking for, UV. Yes.
Yeah. Well, my background is optics, so that's why I can help you.
Oh, really?
Yes,
wow.
that's my PhD. So so that's yeah. So their sensitivity is more into the ultraviolet, and thereby they can see the fluorescence, which is very interesting. And so the what they actually see with their eyes looks very different to what we see. So the colors that they would see is completely different. So let's jump back and see what the questions are. So Christy H says talon and beak strength. But we just said something about the vision. They're different frequency or wavelengths they can see, but it's not. So is it the talons and the eyesight, or the beak strength?
Well, it involves their talons.
It involves their talons. So you're on the right track here.
And think about the fact that parrots have talons but they don't have claws.
Yes.
And falcons have talons, but not claws. But it's what are they carrying with those feet that they can use to grip? Because claws are used to get a grip. But if you're going to carry something, you would carry it with talons.
Right. That's not an easy one.
It's not an easy one.
But I love the challenge because that's what it's all about. So it's good.
One of the things that makes a difference between falcons and all the other birds of prey is that falcons catch their food with their feet, but they kill it with their beak. And all the other birds of prey catch with their feet and kill with their feet. So that may be another good hint for you too.
Okay. I think you got everybody flabbergasted here. I think.
Well, should we spill the beans here?
I think spill the beans because it's a good education, and then we'll say the second no one won, and then we'll give one more question. That's fine. Yeah, that's the way it is.
Well, what they do is they're the only two sets of birds that will consistently carry their food to their beak. And everybody else, they will do it every now and then, the birds that actually have talons and not claws, because if you have claws, you can't do it. Like a duck has claws, and he can't put food into his mouth. But parrots and falcons consistently pick up their food and put it into their mouth. So that paired with the ultraviolet sensitivity has got the boys in the lab thinking about that they may be doing some classifying of in terms of species or genus with these birds.
Wow, that's a beautiful answer. Thank you so much for that really educational question. I think it's more important than winning. So we're going to give one more question, and that'll be it.
Might be the only two facts I know.
Well, then you know very important facts. Those are two more than I know. So that's.
You have a good trivia question?
Yeah.
No, everybody over here is going, no, I don't know.
Yeah, but there.
A good trivia question, yeah.
So, any other questions?
Okay.
What do you call?
Oh, I know.
What do you call?
What?
What's the technical name for the feathers on top of a great horned owl's head?
Oh, that's a good
Okay,
one.
here comes. What's the question, please?
Okay, the question is, you know how some owls have just a nice round head, and some of them have a pair of tufts on the top of their head, like great horns and screech owls? What's the technical name for the feathers that make up the tufts on the top of tufted birds, on tufted owls' heads?
Okay.
That's a real good one.
Okay, I think you heard that. So you're talking about the feathers on the top of the head, right? That's
right.
So
the two tufts.
The two tufts.
Stick out
What is the technical or the correct biological name for that? Oh gosh, that's a great question. Okay, let's we're gonna wait a little bit and see who knows that one.
Oh, okay.
I think they're completely puzzled.
We spilled the beans on this one back here, and some people are starting to use that as their, I guess I shouldn't say that, but as their password.
Oh, good.
It's a very high score when you try to make when you use this word for your password.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. You're probably going to get a lot of hackers now. No, I'm only joking.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
No.
You got to start somewhere. You know?
That's good. No, it's good. I mean, that's very good. Okay, I'm still waiting, so I'll wait for Nicole to type in some answer here, and then we'll say it.
Another fun thing to think about with owls is who they're related to. A lot of people think that they're related to hawks and falcons and that stuff, but actually the closest relatives that owls have are the, Patty, what's the name of those birds?
Which ones?
The whippoorwills and all that. The nightjars. The nightjar family. They're most closely related to them. Because when you think about it, they have the same plumage. They're just have that soft, a real, I don't know, feathery, I guess is the word that you'd want, but they're very cryptic with their way they look, so well camouflaged. And what happened with the original family of these things like whippoorwills and what who else are the nightjars, the whippoorwills, Chuckville's widow, and the nighthawks, which are not hawks.
Nighthawks, yeah.
Yeah. What happened is one set of family back in the olden times, some of the creatures would kind of fly out a foot or two and catch a moth or something, and then fly back to the stump, while others would sit on the stump, and when they saw something crawling around on the ground, they'd simply drop down and get that little bug or snake or whatever it is. So the two families kind of dispersed like that, and you wound up with owls being your big flyers, and your nightjars doing a little bit different behavior. So they're very closely related to them. And in fact, the link between the nightjars and the owls is the tawny frogmouth that's down there in Australia. You take one look at them, and your first thought when you see this gigantic whippoorwill is basically, oh my gosh, is that an owl or is that a whippoorwill? And they're big too. They're about probably 9 or 10 inches. And if you've been to Australia, you've probably seen them there. They're very popular birds.
Gosh, you're absolute walking encyclopedia. It's wonderful. Nicole's just saying she can listen to you for hours. I agree.
Oh, how nice. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to, in the meantime, some answers have come in. The first one from Marie Murray is, they're called plumicorns.
That's correct. Ding,
you
ding,
got
ding,
it.
Ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. You got it. Good. So we got two.
Isn't that a wonderful word?
Yes, it is. Plumicorns. Very nice. So that is the winner. So we have two winners here. So Murray, I hope I said that correct. Marie Murray, I think. Marie Murray, please, pass on your details. So you are a winner. So what I'm going to do now, Laura, is I'm going to blend in.
Okay.
Hang on. I need to blend in this here. There you go.
Oh my!
So what you
look
can
at
see,
that.
you're still in the background, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to just expand the page a little bit. Just hang on, because you're slightly in the background, like that. There we go.
Okay.
That's better.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
So now they can see it. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to spin the wheel for the first one, and you're just going to say stop at, oops, no. Wow, you see today everything, it's going.
It's the humidity.
And you won't believe it. Now you won't believe it, but a call is coming in. Everything is working, but I hear a call coming in for some reason. I have to say to Kevin, can you help block that call? Because please don't give any calls, because you're completely confusing me. Just hang on.
I'm confused most of the time, so it's very comfortable for me.
This is too funny. Wait a second. I have to just see what happened to the to this wonderful wheel. Here we go. Here we
there
go.
You go.
Yeah. Just
look
5
at
minutes.
that.
5 minutes. Yes. So here we go. We're spinning the wheel. Yeah. We're spinning the wheel. And just say stop.
I'm ready, huh?
Just say stop whenever.
Okay. Stop.
Okay, that's a beautiful one. This was taken in White Rock. That is.
I see it. Yeah.
That is an eagle that
nice.
was catching something. That was catching something. So that just took off. So that is picture number 10 for the first winner. And I'm going to spin it on now. And please say stop again.
Okay. Stop.
Oops. Oh, you know what? I stopped it.
Boy, I stopped it.
No, it was me. It was me. I stopped it. And so we'll have to spin it again. Wait 1 second. Let me just put it nice and large. Okay. I pressed the wrong button. Okay, please say stop.
Stop.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh.
This was taken in Port Hardy. It's a morning. Then you see some spider webs there. it's you know, it's a very beautiful scene. So
is that in Vancouver?
yeah, that's on Vancouver Island, actually. It's Vancouver Island.
Oh,
We have lots of
wow.
eagles there. It was the morning dew, incredible. It's a beautiful post as well. It's taken against the light with an eagle sitting there with a spider web. So it's a beautiful scene.
That's not a bad way to hang out.
And Laura, if you want any picture, Nicole will communicate with you. We're very happy to send you whatever pictures you want. I've got a beautiful collection of
well, I tell you, I saw a picture of a foot.
A foot, yes.
I think.
Yeah, well, we'll.
That was pretty
yeah,
good.
and Nicole will send you some. So Nicole, please do that. Laura's been absolutely magnificent, you know, to help here. So I'm just going to.
Well, how kind of you.
No, that is. I mean, how kind of you to take part. So let me just go back to the. Go back here and. Yeah, and Laura, thank you so much for participating. It's been absolutely wonderful to have you here.
Well, thank you. I've been looking forward to it. It's such a busy time of year, but then we thought, well, you know what, we could do it on Christmas Day. But I think it's like when some of these things were, okay, what is a good day? You know, so I'm so glad we were able to get this put in, because it's what a fun thing for me, and the guys have been waiting for it and can't wait to. When will we be able to see these? See this?
No, this is live now, and it's immediately on. It's immediately on replay. It's immediately on replay. So you'll be able to see it straight away. It's running live, and you can just watch it. And if you want me to send you the original, I can definitely do that in high resolution. So that's fine.
Wow, that's terrific.
Well,
Laura,
Laura,
a message.
You've been absolutely marvelous. Thank you so much for participating. So just, you know, stay on the line. I'll talk to you in about 5 minutes. I'm just going to say goodbye to everyone. So thanks, everyone. Everybody's thanking you for your incredibly dedicated knowledge. It's been absolutely marvelous. So thank you so much. Okay.
Well, thank you for being the wind under our wings.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to say goodbye now to everyone. Thanks so much for being on the show, and I hope you feel like a glass of wine. I wish only I had a glass of wine. Would it be marvelous if you just had a glass of wine come out of nowhere, you know? But I mean, that's what I dream of. Oh my goodness, I see 2 glasses coming out. Wait, this is just crazy. Okay, I'm going to take a glass here and say cheers to the ghost. This is absolutely marvelous, and I wish you, on that note, let me say cheers again. And this is marvelous. I mean, you have glasses floating out of nowhere. It's a lovely red wine, and I'm going to say cheers to everyone. And all the ghosts I have here, isn't that incredible how everything just flies around? Well, Ghost, can you just take this a second? I take my glass. I'll be up right away, so thanks for all that. Oh, you hear the cling. You see, I mean, what kind of ghosts do you have? It's wonderful. So on that note, have a lovely weekend, and all the best. And I wanted to tell you, there's a conference going on ornithology from the 19th of August to the 26th of August. David Hancock's going to be there, Professor Bird. I will be broadcasting live from the conference. It's going to be quite magnificent. You're going to see the best experts come throughout North America and from the world to this conference. And it's something great to look forward to. So just, that's something great to look forward to, and Nicole's got someone new for next week, so it's something great to look forward to. So have a lovely weekend on that, and I hope you also have time for a glass of wine like I just did, and I'm going to run up and have some wine. And on that, I wish you all a lovely weekend, and thank you so much for being with me. Okay, and thanks a lot. Have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.